Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. It is Local Chat, episode 195. Folks, I am your host, Will Crosby. Joining me this week are two beautiful boys. One of them is Kyle Bailey.
Hi.
And the other is Ian Gibson.
Hello.
He's here, they're here, we're here, all to invade Poland. It's time, guys. It's time.
Again? We already did that.
2. Electric Boogaloo.
Oh, boy.
There's a lot going on. There's a lot of things happening. Ian reminded me earlier today. Ian did I broke a law. I watched a stream that said do not watch. And for that, I will be executed. But until then, Ian was testing some Extra Life stuff on stream. It went swimmingly, I would say. The microphones sound great. They sound as intended, I should say. They sound like microphones in a room recording people. And you weren't peeking at all, so perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would say the other thing is that there's a wall right behind him. I don't have good sound treatment in this room, so I think there'll be less of that roomy effect when we put them in the larger living room. But yeah, they're great $50 mics.
Yes, they seem great. So with that, you also mentioned something on that stream, which I realized we did not announce, is when Extra Life is going to be this year.
That's right.
Christmas Day. No, Ian, do you want to tell the good people at home?
Yes, folks. Extra Life, Subpixel Extra Life 2024 will be Saturday, November 9th. We'll be starting at noon Eastern and we'll be ending on Sunday, November 10th at noon Eastern. I'm really looking forward to it. We're officially, 2.5 weeks away. God, I have so much shit I need to do between now and then. But yeah, I've told you this before, but Maggie and I, the problem is this is not really an exaggeration. The only time we clean the house is for Extra Life, pretty much. So, but the other thing is, it's also one of those things where 9 months out of the year, we don't do anything in the house in terms of home improvement. Oh, we should replace that. We should get new bulbs and stuff. And then 3 months out, I'm just like, oh fuck, we got to start doing this stuff. So we've been doing a lot of home improvement and redecorating and things like that. So Extra Life for me is it's like edging without the orgasm.
Jesus.
Because it's not like a weekend activity for me. It's like a 3-month ramp up for me. And then it finally happens and I just feel drained. Maybe a little satisfied. Anyway,
barring the sexual metaphor, I mean, I was always very impressed whenever I got to your house at 3 a.m. after driving for 13 hours. I'm like, damn, this place is clean. Ian runs a tight ship. But now all has been revealed, and it's just in November.
Can I say, okay, look, it's not that I'm super clean or anything, but when I was living by myself, I would clean the place once every 6 to 8 weeks, right? But it also would not get that dirty in general.
Okay.
Maggie's very messy. Let me give you one example. When she cooks dinner or whatever and she cuts vegetables, she just leaves the cutting board, the knife, and the vegetable scraps on the counter for 3-4 days. So just literally just nothing. So she'll open an Amazon package, put down the packaging on the counter, and it's there for a week. So she just, and then apply that to everything, right? Literally everything.
Are the toilets just full of shit and toilet paper?
Once it's there, it's not her problem.
Yeah. And so it's one of those things where it's a struggle for me because, again, I'm not super cleanly, but I'm like, hey, I'll at least, if I unpack an Amazon package, I'll at least put it in the trash, and so for me, it's a struggle where I've been like, oh, I'll just clean up after her. And that just gets very frustrating and tiring. And I think, unfortunately, I'm now at the point where I'm just like, I'll just ask her to clean up once every 2 weeks. And that's it, so the place is just a mess all the time. So that's why Extra Life is like, no, you don't understand. People will be living here for several days. We have to clean.
We have to.
I mean,
don't understand. Yeah.
I feel like I got a lot of the cleanliness that I have from obviously my mom. Like we did chores growing up every weekend. I don't know what it was like for you, Will, or Ian.
Same.
Like and so like that was sort of instilled in me. Definitely do not dust like nearly as much as like I.
Where's it all coming from?
Back there? Yeah, exactly. I'm like, well, no one died in here yet. It's not. I know it's all half dead skin cells or whatever. I do clean if someone comes over. Like I had a friend come over for a slice of that cake that I made. Literally like a 2-minute stop. He came over, I cut him a slice, and I was like, well, I should clean. And I took like 2 hours and like cleaned everything and like organized and vacuumed. And like I lit candles because I was like, well, I don't, it might smell like a cat in here or something like that. I want to make sure. So today is actually the last day probably I'm going to have this year, barring, winter actually showing up, that I can have the windows open. So I'm like airing out the apartment because it's like 80 some degrees or whatever. And New Jersey's currently in a drought and has been for like 2 months. So I'm taking advantage of that. But I mean, I don't clean that much. I vacuum. That's about it.
Yeah. Vacuuming's good. We clean about once a month because we have Chris and Vic over to play board games about once a month. And that's when we clean.
Would you rather? Every month is just a would you
every
rather
month
night.
It's just a would you rather night. It's most of the times it's no. I wouldn't rather.
No, neither.
Neither. So that's usually when we do the bulk of our cleaning. My brother's coming into town, and he's gonna stay here tonight. And I think that we just cleaned up the bathroom, and then I'll organize some stuff. Like every time we clean the house, it's bathroom cleaned first. Because you want that to be the cleanest place so people aren't disgusted all the time. Also, our bathroom tends to look dirtier than it is sometimes because it's tiny, and that's where Karen blows dries her hair and straightens it and everything. So it's just tiny
it's her fault.
Hairs everywhere all the time. And I'm like,
and
I mean, it's just hair city because I shave and all that sort of stuff. So it's always like, okay, bathroom first, and then I will clean and vacuum and do the living room and everything. Plus when they come over for board games, I move the table to put all the leaves in it and make it nice and big. So that's usually it. And then every so often I'll do that hardcore organization autism clean where you're just
I did that a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, everything needs to be redone. I did that a couple weeks ago with my VHS tapes and all that sort of stuff. It was just piling up things I had bought, and I was just like, no, fuck it. I'm cleaning everything up, organized wires and all that sort of stuff, and feels good. Feels very very good.
I will say on the organizing trend, I really like to do that, especially now that I have a 3D printer. Well, I mean, I've had one for a while, but it's I'll give you a perfect example, right? So Grayson, my cat, has diabetes, and
sorry,
I'm not gonna forgive you. And so, long story short, it's not super complicated. He needs insulin twice a day, 12 hours apart, and right now he's on 4 cans of food. And I was doing really good, and then there was one day where I was like, I can't remember if I gave him insulin that morning or not. I'm certain that I did, but because I couldn't specifically remember, I got worried. So I bought a diabetic log book where literally every time I feed him or give him insulin, I just write it there. And I was for a couple days, I was like, okay, well, I have to take this book out and find a pen and do it. And I was like, fuck this. So I designed and 3D printed a magnetic holder for a Sharpie on the fridge, and then a magnetic holder for the book. So you fold the book open and it slides in and it's on the fridge, and you don't even have to touch it. You just write on it and then turn the page once a week. And I was like, this is perfect. And I would love to do more of that. But the problem is that when I have done that in some of Maggie and I's shared spaces, she just refuses to use the organizer. And I don't mean to shit talk too much, but I'll give you another perfect fucking example. So a couple of years ago for my birthday, I got these measuring spoons that I wanted, like baking measuring spoons, and they're magnetic and they're 2-sided. So they're literally snapped together, and there's 5 per set, and they snap together. They nest in like Russian nesting dolls, right? And every time I put them away in the drawer, you just snap them in the right order. Maggie never does that. I've asked her and she just doesn't. She opens the drawer, throws them in there, and it's like they're literally made to magnets snap together, and she just refuses. So I've given up on organization in shared space. Anywhere I'm using it, I can organize because it will stay that way, but it's just kind of pointless in the rest of the house, which kind of sucks.
That sucks. Sorry, my microphone was falling off the fucking thing. I was emergency twisting. Speaking of emergency twisting, Ian,
Hi.
There's a big there's the drug we have to talk about, but let's not do that yet. Let's save that for last. So I'll have Kyle go first, then I'll go, and then Ian, you can go, and then we can finish off with drug talk.
Yeah, we'll finish.
Dare.
Yeah, we'll finish each other off.
Because I'm genuinely interested to hear about Star Wars Galaxy's Outlaws. I wish it was Star Wars Galaxies. I got really hyped.
Question. What is the name? Is it Star Wars Outlaws?
It's Star Wars
so.
Outlaws. Actually, I don't think there's a colon. I think it's just Star Wars Outlaws.
I'll look it up. Because the problem is all those fucking... It's like Marvel's Spider-Man 2. No colon. Star Wars Outlaws. Between Star Wars and Marvel, they have just completely fucked up a lot of their naming conventions, and it's middle hyphen lowercase Earth out there. It's wild with names right now.
Well, because the Star Wars Jedi games are Star Wars in all caps Jedi : whatever the title of the game is, which is like, I kind of get it. To be fair, this has been a problem since Star Wars games have been in existence.
Yes,
true.
In eternity, just like Star Wars Jedi Knight 2 Star Wars Jedi Knight 2 Jedi Outcast or Jedi Academy. Like it's painful.
Too much.
And I don't know why they make it that painful on themselves. Anyway, yes, I had played Star Wars Outlaws when it released, thanks to the local chat that we did that week. You mentioned that Ubisoft had their version of Game Pass or whatever it is.
Yes, sir.
So I paid the $15 for 1 month. That was at the beginning of this month or the end of last month or whatever. So my time with that ends in about 6 days, I think, or 5 days. So I was like, I better get my money's worth. I better hop back on Star Wars Outlaws. Now, I had only played about 2-ish hours. Like I'd done enough to get through that intro sequence and then get onto the first planet, the moon or whatever. And I really did not like it. Like I did not like it at all. Something about something about the movement in that game and the honestly, I think it's the camera placement just feels awkward.
Yeah.
It's like they I don't know, it's like they took the B team and just said, do this. It feels very much like the Star Wars version of Mass Effect Andromeda. Not quite to that extent of like buggy glitchiness, but I've encountered a lot of bugs and a lot of just sort of visual glitches that I never encountered with any of the Respawn stuff, or any really major Star Wars release that I've played in the past 10 years. Granted, the beginning of a game, especially a big game, especially a big Ubisoft game, is often not as telling as the rest of the game. Sort of the middle 20 to 30 hours that you might spend of like a 60 to 70 hour experience. That's where like the chunk of that is. So I'm trying to get to the point where things sort of start to fall in line. Everything becomes a little bit easier and intuitive, and just you get used to the pacing and the delineation of a quest line is like, you just do that over and over and over again. So I finally got to that point last night where I think I'm like 6 hours in now, and it's a little bit better, but I still really don't like it. So there was a moment on that first moon where you make a couple different choices of which faction of outlaw, party that you want to support. You can support the Crimson Dawn, which is like the lesbian one.
Yeah, Pikes,
and then the
Hutts.
Yeah, and then the Pikes and the Hutts are there. I got like a thing from Jabba the Hutt or whatever, the guy who works for Jabba the Hutt. I was like, I don't give a shit. The Pikes and the Crimson Dawn are like the two first, the first set of two that you have to pick and choose who to support. And I went with the Crimson Dawn because I support my lesbians.
Thank God.
And there was a moment after that where you're just kind of like, you don't have anything pressing to do. You can kind of explore. And it's the first moment that they give you after like giving you like big mission, big mission, big mission, where it's like, okay, I can just walk around. I know where to go to start the next section. And I was just walking around looking at the kind of marketplace that they had set up. And I came upon a booth that had, you could buy food, like you could buy like an actual food thing. And I was not expecting what happened to happen, where I thought, okay, I'm just going to buy a food and it will like give me, you know, experience points or something. And you sit down and there's an entire like fully animated, like 5-minute section of just eating food. And it's like a quick time event. I have mixed feelings on it because I hate that kind of stuff. I hate like the, you know, press X, press up, you know, press depress the trigger buttons or whatever to eat the food or whatever. And part of me was like, this is kind of cool. It's kind of quirky. But the thing that stood out to me was how like interactive it was with your little animal buddy that you have. It was very cute. And I was like, oh, this is like a nice Star Warsy thing to do. But that sort of flew in the face of the rest of the game, which is so stock standard. Just like, okay, like I know, like I don't care about the story that much at all. I did this cool thing where you like infiltrate a Imperial base, and I was like, okay, like that's cool, but you can't go back to that base. Like it's a one-off or whatever. And it gives you a little bit of more detail and experience with like flying, and you finally get your ship off the ground. You get the parts that you need, and everything just felt so stock standard. We need to have XYZ in Star Wars game. We need to, you need to be able to fly. You need to be able to do stealth. You need to be able to, like, I don't know. It just doesn't feel like, it doesn't have that like oomph that the Star Wars Jedi stuff does. And I truly do think it's because I'm the type of player that is primed to wield a lightsaber with Star Wars. I like the fact that there's an option to have a game that is not lightsaber focused at all. It's just focused on the other stuff. But like, to me, that is so much less interesting. And especially because it's so much less well done in this game. Like the polish is just not there. It looks visually very cool, like the graphics, the RTX settings that you can have, like you can make this game sing. But I have glitched through so many walls and glitched through like the ground a couple times. My speeder has just randomly blown up. Like I'll just be driving and it'll just like, okay, you're dead, or you die or whatever. I don't like the fact that you can't like shoot anyone in like everywhere. Like I want to be able to just like pull out my pistol and shoot someone. Because even it's in a game like Harry Potter, you can like kill random students. Like you can just Avada Kedavra like people. Like I want GTA in Star Wars essentially. And this is so handholdy and so isolating in those sort of faction oriented areas that I just don't feel compelled to play much further. I like that they clearly put a ton of thought and effort into like the little tiny things. Like they didn't have to spend, I'm sure, the weeks that it took to create those animated food booths, and like the food is cool and like it was a very unique experience, but at the same time it's wrapped around this, I don't know, it just doesn't feel as tight and as fresh and as polished as I want it to be. And clearly it's not ever going to get there, because Ubisoft, there's no way they're supporting this game past whatever DLC they already have like in the can for it. I mean, it didn't sell well, according to theirs, even though it sold like 1 million copies or even 5 million copies or whatever. To them, it doesn't sell well. And that just speaks volumes to me as far as like, if you can't get it right, to the majority of people, none of it matters. Like it's basically just a waste. And I feel bad because there's so much work that Massive obviously put into this, but it just isn't singing to me. It doesn't have that special sauce.
Yeah, I felt the same way. It feels like a AAA game that is a mile wide. You know, one of the first things you can do in the game is bet on like horse races, and you're like, cool. What does that fucking do for me? And it's like nothing. You can just do it, and the game's just full of shit that you can do but it doesn't have much meaning. It's there. It doesn't have depth. It doesn't tie into anything else, and it feels okay at best. And that applies even to like the core gameplay, like the stealth mechanics and the shooting and everything. It's like, yeah, it's okay. I didn't have that food experience because it's funny that moment where things open up and they're like, okay, go walk around or you can go here for your story. That's when I quit playing the game. I was like, there's no fucking way it's getting better from here. But hearing you talk about that food thing, I was not repulsed by hearing that because I was like, oh, it reminds me a lot of a Yakuza game.
Yeah.
But why does it work in a Yakuza game, but it doesn't work in this? And it's because a Yakuza game is not just, hey, when you eat, you have a little, quick time mechanic, or like, hey, you can do karaoke and it gives you a little quick time. It's like, no, when you do that, you build up rapport with the store owner and they'll give you special things and maybe you get some experience from that. And because I don't want to say stuck in an area, but because the whole game is based in a single location typically, now when you walk past that place, you have a memory with that location. You're like, oh yeah, that's where the karaoke place is. That's where I sang. Oh, I should go and do more of that. Like it's technically a little mini game, but because they've built it into the main game in a way, and the store owner may give you some quest if you eat there often enough, etc., or you unlock something if you eat at all the locations of the chain and things like that. Like Yakuza does a fantastic job of doing all the different little mechanics, and Pokemon Snap, like they'll just fucking throw that in a game because they're like, hey, isn't Pokemon Snap cool? We're gonna add that type of mini game. But they actually tie it into the core game and give you reasons to do it and make the mini game itself feel good. And it feels like Star Wars Outlaws to an extent was them saying, look what all these cool games are doing. Look at how many cool little mini games they have and all the things you can do in the city. Oh, we should do that too. But they didn't actually look into why it works and why it feels good. They just saw it as, oh, we need an eating mini game. We need a betting mini game. And they just checked off and said, yep, feature implemented, move on. And that's part of the reason why this game fails. It just doesn't feel good when you mash all that stuff together without meaning.
So I've never, as we talked about last time I was on, I've never actually played a Yakuza game, but like can completely see what you're saying, even just from seeing like the trailers of a couple Yakuza games where it's like you see that stuff and that's the special sauce. That's where it's like, why is this like so well done? It seems like such a crazy thing to focus on. I feel like I'm of like two minds of this game, this Outlaws game, where like the artistry and the time and effort and the animation and the voice acting and the motion capture that went into those little things, it's like, that's really cool that you were able to do that. But the ultimate ending of that, the end game of having those in there, like doesn't amount to anything, at least in my experience. It's cool to have it if you're the type of person or player who likes just having that in there as flavor. Like it basically just comes down to being flavor text, and it's like, okay, that's cool to have that in there. But to me, it doesn't. It like the she says thank you to the robot, the droid that made it, and I'm like, the droid doesn't talk. Like if they didn't give the thing that she's talking to any kind of personality. It's literally just silent the entire time. And I'm like,
flavor.
And I'm like, that could have been an opportunity to have like a cool like side character that like, you come back and he's got a new menu item or something like that.
That's Yakuza, baby.
Yeah. And it just doesn't. I keep saying it, but like it doesn't sing to me. Like there's nothing super special about it. And also I have to say the facial animations are so bad. Like they're really bad. That's every time they focus on Kay Vess, or the main character, and it's like a close up. I'm like, why are her lips not syncing with what she's saying?
I said the exact same thing. I was like, I'm not trying to be sexist, but like there are people in the game, like the main enemy that you meet at the beginning when you rob his place, like his face looks amazing, right? And then you look at Kay Vess and it's like a combination of her face,
it's like
and the animations,
like her like cheekbones are too.
She's fugly and like I was literally not joking when I was like, if I was QA on this game, I probably would have like studied it and been like, is there a bug here? Like, is something going wrong with the system here?
The Digital Foundry review of it mentions this, and they're like, they're like really confused by it. And I'm of the same mind where it's like the rest of the game is so like beautifully like visually, and something about the facial animations and even some of the aliens like just look. I don't know, like their lips don't match, the mouth movements don't match the voiceover that's coming through. I don't think it's just Kay, but I do think that it's a problem that the main character of your game has this problem. And like you, like, I mean, I'm not attracted to women, but like I'm sure she kind of gives me the vibes of like Faith from Mirror's Edge, where she's like, you know, she is very like, she can handle any situation. But like the detraction that you get from like just her mouth not syncing up is like, she's not a real character. Like that makes me not believe what I'm hearing from the voice acting, from the motion capture, like simply because her face is not matching what the output of her voice and the rest of her motion capture is sending to the player's eyes. And it's just really strange that happens. So that's my time with Star Wars Outlaws. Will, I know you like Star Wars Outlaws. I do not mean to
no, that's fine. I think
it's bad against it, but yeah.
I think it's an incredible game. I think it's way better than Jedi games, but I think that's the other thing is I hate being a Jedi in Star Wars games. I hate when, like, with the Kyle Katarn stuff, they started giving him lightsabers. I was like, what the fuck are you doing? Also, to the game's credit, that minigame, there's food minigames on every planet, and they unlock abilities for Nick's, like, bonus abilities that you can use. And I do walk past them every time and think about when I popped corn in that place. I don't know how to comment on the ugly character. I think looks fine.
I'm not saying she's ugly. I'm just saying the animation does her no favors in making her a believable character.
Yeah, I may have said ugly before. I guess the better term is like her face looks broken.
Like it looks like there's something wrong. Yeah, not with like the design, but with the implementation of the facial capture, whatever they did to animate it. It looks not correct, which is why I referenced the Mass Effect Andromeda stuff, because it was like clearly they're able to animate it, but like not to the extent that like the mainline, Mass Effect games were able to do. So I don't know. It just throws me off while playing it. I know a lot of other people disagree and agree with that. So it's kind of like, I feel like it's.
I think it's a very polarizing game. It's a very solid 7 game that I really enjoy.
Sure.
And
wait a minute. I thought we agreed it was a 6.
You can say whatever the fuck you want.
No, I really did thought we landed on a 6 during our first discussion. I'll give it a 6. It's a solid 6 is what I would give it. And
I do also think, for all of its faults, I think it is one of the most immersive Star Wars games. You can walk around those cities and it's just people in Star Wars.
Super detailed.
Living there.
Massive is good at a lot of stuff, and one of the best things that their team is just so focused on is making the worlds like breathe and feel like lived in. That's cool. But for me, like if the story around those worlds is not interesting, I really don't care. Like it's the same thing with like Assassin's Creed, where it's like Ubisoft, I forget who makes Assassin's Creed. If Assassin's Creed Montreal, I don't know. The studio Assassin's Creed, they like the world of like Greece, like bringing that together, like walking through Athens and just experiencing like, oh wow, like there's the Parthenon, or there's like the whatever it is that you're going through. That's really cool. But like if the story's not there, like it's just window dressing to me. So
yeah. Moving on, I'll go next. From Star Wars to Mario, Super Mario Party Jamboree came out last week. This is the 50,000th Mario Party game. I think it's like the 13th or 14th.
Something like that, yeah.
It is the third on the Nintendo Switch. It is the, I guess, sequel to Super Mario Party. In between those two was Super Mario Superstar, or Mario Party Superstars came out before this, and that was a remake of a bunch of GameCube and N64 Mario Party maps and mini games. So it is separate from the Super Mario Party. So this is Super Mario Party Jamboree, and boy howdy, is this a fantastic video game. I think it is simply the best Mario Party. Like if you want to sit down and play a modern Mario Party, I wouldn't be like, let's play Superstars, or let's play like 2 on like emulated 2 or 3. I think this is the Mario Party to go for. There of the Mario parties you can do on the main menu, there are multiple maps. You can do regular rules, or you can do pro rules, which remove like all the luck, and it's just all like skill-based mini games and stuff like that. And I think it gets rid of the bonus stars. I played a round or two rounds of Mario Party with Karen and my sister-in-law, and we had an absolute blast. Oh, and her roommate, and we had a super fun time. I forget who won, but yeah, just the feeling of it's really good. There were a lot of issues with Super Mario Party, the first one on the Nintendo Switch. It had these ally dice that you found an ally, and then they joined your team and they rolled a dice with you. All the characters had these like special dice. So like, I think Shy Guys was like 2, 2, 4, 4, 4, 4. And then like Bowser's was 8, 9, 10, and then like minus coins and all this different stuff. And so now the allies, I think they're called Jamboree Buddies now. It's just like, okay. But they spawn on the map. They're only there for a certain amount of time. And then when you pick them up, whoever lands on them, everyone has to duel to win the Jamboree Buddy. It's not the person who finds it gets them automatically. Oh. And the person who does find it gets extra points towards getting them. So you do like this little like triathlon to, and each character has their own specific one to win them over. And then they join you.
Is the Jamboree Buddy, is that replacing the star?
That's replacing the ally spaces.
Tool? Oh, okay.
So there were allies in Super Mario Party. So now it's just a person who joins your team, and they join your team for only 3 turns. They're not there for the entire game, giving you a bonus die.
That's good.
On top of that, they have special things. So like Rosalina, all shop items were half off. Mario rolled an extra die for you, and there were other ones. But on top of that, when they're in your party for the 3 turns, it doubles everything. So you land on a space, it does the space twice. You land at a star, you can buy 2 stars. You get an item shop, you can buy 2 items. It's really neat. The map we played on is they have an F1 map, which is just Mario Kart, and you are in the cart racing around the map, like driving around. There's like turbo, and then there's like dice specific to maps. So on that one, there were turbo dice that you roll 4 dice and you go super fast, but you skip stars and stuff. You just move as fast as you can. And all sorts of
how's the shopping mall map?
I have not played on that one yet. It seems it is of high difficulty, and I heard people say it is rather hard. And I watched someone play 10 turns on that, and that is very much a map that looks like you need to play like 30 turns. Like it seems like a to get around and do everything. It's really great. The Mario Party part of it plays really well. Outside of the Mario Party, there is a single player that you are helping the Toads set up the Mario Party maps. So you are going around the Mario Party maps, talking to Goombas, talking to Toads, talking to allies, and you're playing mini games to unlock mini stars. You are finding, like an adventure game, this guy needs a fishing pole. You go talk to the other guy who he needs something. You give it to him. He unlocks the gate that gets you to the fishing pole. And you can bring it back. And then at the end, when you've finished the quests that you like have a task list and everything, you do like a big boss fight mini game, and then you can move on to the next Mario Party map that you are helping them set up. Cool. And you are earning decorations and stuff for your little Mario Party Plaza sort of thing.
Now you're saying allies. Is this game woke?
Sorry, Jamboree Buddies.
I was gonna ask. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry,
they were called.
I don't play DEI games. If you're DEI, you deserve to die. Yeah,
I understand the joke. I'm acknowledging the joke, but they were called allies in Super Mario Party. That's why I keep calling them allies. Okay. But they're Jamboree Buddies now. And it is a system that was cool when they introduced it, and they have now fixed it to be not entirely gameplay broken, which is nice.
I'm excited to play it. Extra Life. It's gonna be fun.
I will be bringing that. Finally, just a shout out. So there's a bunch of other like mini games, and there's a whole mode for 20-player mode. There's an 8-player mode. There's a Toad Factory where you create items in the game. There's tons of mini games and stuff. But the one I really like that we played a lot of is Rhythm Kitchen. So the 4 of you are basically on Iron Chef, and you are making food for the Yoshis. And you use the one Joy-Con, and it is a rhythm game that as you're making the different dishes, stuff comes at you at a beat, and when it enters the little frame, you either like chop the vegetable or build the hamburger, and you're like throwing ingredients on a hamburger, or skewer the meat by stabbing at the stuff on the beat. And it is really cool, really fun. There's a short mode that's really quick, and it works up through different modes that I haven't unlocked yet. But Rhythm Kitchen, that I'm potentially thinking of making that a ball at Extra Life, because it's like short and sweet, and it's just like you have to just stand up, do the stabbing or the cutting and all that sort of stuff, and then move on to the next one. It's a cute little mini game that seems like someone was like, we could make a whole shitty video game about this, or we could just plop it into here and people can have fun playing this little mini game. So that is Rhythm Kitchen.
I don't know why that your description of that mini game just reminded me of that meme. Or I don't even know if it was a meme, but it was like a old Vine or something like that, where it's the old lady and she's like in the 90s doing like a music video, and she's like, peel the avocado, guacamole, guacamole. Like I'm picturing that, but like you're like slicing it with like the Joy-Con or whatever. So
it's it's exactly like that.
That's what I figured. Yeah.
It's really fun. I'll show it to you guys. I also bought I have 4 Joy-Cons, and I always, every time I use my Switch and I need Joy-Cons, I pull out the 2 Joy-Cons that aren't attached, and I go, oh, these are fucking dead. So I put them onto the Switch, and then I take those other 2 Joy-Cons and use those. And then 3 months later, I go to do the same thing and go, these things are fucking dead, and I swap them again. So instead of doing that, I spent $13 on the F.A.R.E Joy-Con charger, and it plugs right into the dock. Through USB, and it just charges all 4 Joy-Cons on a little thing, and it's great. I bought it at Best Buy because they gave me they emailed me a $10 coupon, and I was like, okay, I'll put it on this. So that thing's fantastic, and it keeps all my Joy-Cons charged so I don't freak out and scream like I always do. Ian Gibson, Balatro.
Oh. Yes. I continuing to play Balatro Mobile. It's a fantastic port of Balatro game. Like literally my only complaint, I have a minor complaint, which is it would be cool if there was a vertical mode. I understand why you'd have to change a lot to do vertical, but it works fine in horizontal. My other complaint is that it is possible. I know games that do it. It would be great if my Google Play cloud save synced with my Steam cloud save. There are other games that make that work, typically through like a medium service, but they didn't do this, so I technically have 2 saves now. But other than that, I went to an air show this weekend, Jacksonville Air Show. We tried to go 2 years ago, and I live 15 minutes from the base where the air show happens. The air show starts at 11 a.m. and me and my family were like, okay, cool. Let's leave it like, I don't know. Let's just leave it like 10. We left at 10. We got stuck on a bridge for 2 hours, like halfway to the base. And then we left and we were like, let's just go to Culver's. And then we just went to Culver's. And then we were like, okay, next time we're going to leave early. So basically I knew that I was going to be going to the air show super early, and I was probably going to be doing a lot of waiting throughout the day. So like I left my house at like 7:45. I got there at 8. The gates weren't even open till 9. And then I finally got in. And you could get in and sit down at 9, but the air show didn't start till 11. So I had all this time throughout the day where I'm just like sitting there doing nothing, or even like in between segments of the air show. And I was fine because I had Balatro Mobile, folks. Well, I have my Kindle, but I also have Balatro Mobile. And it's really great having Balatro because it's one of those things where you don't know how long a run is going to last you. Even if you're really good at the game, as long as you're challenging yourself with some of the decks, you can have runs that last like 5 minutes, which is just like perfect mobile time, right? Like, granted, you got to use both hands, but you're just like, okay, I don't know how long this is going to take, maybe 10, 15 minutes. Okay, Balatro Mobile. And even if you're not done with the game, you just minimize it and move on with your day and then pick it back up later. So it's a fantastic mobile game. If you haven't played Balatro yet, I'm tempted to say get the mobile version because it's going to be more portable for you. And it's fantastic. And if you have played Balatro and you love it, buy Balatro Mobile. Like literally the only problem with it is I have heard some people who don't have self-control, and so now they're playing like 8 hours of Balatro a day because it's in their pocket now, so they're just like constantly playing it or staying up late in bed playing it on the toilet for hours, things like that. I'm not that bad, but it's fantastic, and this may honestly be the best version of the game because of how portable it is now. It's great. Other than that, I've been playing Factorio Space Age. Will, how far are you in Factorio Space Age? What's your time?
I'm on the recently played. Actually, I might have to pop it up because
tell me your time and your tech.
Oh god. How do I look at that played recently?
I mean, you could just load the game and go to load the save file. It'll tell you on that too.
So okay, here it is. Last 2 weeks, 14.3 hours. And last 2 weeks is since Monday.
Wow, 14 hours. What tech are you at? Because I'm only at 9.5 hours.
So I'm almost about to have blue science. I'm so close.
Is blue science the third one?
Blue science, after military, so it's the fourth one.
You did military, because I usually skip military because I think you can fully skip it if you're not, because I'm doing peaceful mode.
Oh, see, I wasn't a pussy, so I went.
I've done Factorio, and it's fun, but it's also one of those things where it's like, I can just play without having to deal with any of that, and it's like, okay, yeah, I just won't do that because it kind of slows you down.
I've never played with enemies, so I was like, I should try it at least once. Yeah, plus, this whole DLC is new enemies on the planets and stuff, so I was like, I should probably see that,
That's fair.
And not be a baby.
Yeah.
But so that's where I'm at. Let me fucking finish.
I was just gonna let you know. I skipped military science. Military science isn't that hard, right? Though, because it's just like magazines, grenades, and walls or something like that.
It's nothing. Yeah.
I am about to start manufacturing blue science because I just got my lubricant and I already have blue science running. I'm about to start doing drones and bots. So I just got my lubricant running and my advanced oil processing. I have that trained back into my main base. So we're actually pretty much at the same place.
Yeah, I think definitely having enemies turned on has attributed to that. It is fun. I like maintaining it and driving around and killing them. And plus, you have to be you can try to maintain your pollution and all that sort of stuff. The other thing that really hindered me is oil was really far away from my starting base.
Yeah, did they tweak that? Because it feels like the big patches are further away than they used to be.
I think so. The other problem was not only the oil was super far away, but my coal was running out really quickly, and I had to go in search of more coal, and I finally just found more oil and a giant 5.3 million coal right next to each other, but it's next to a bunch of aliens, so I was slowly killing them off. And I've been doing a lot of work at my main base, and I get alerts, and it just says 40 things destroyed, and I'm so I go, where's my last autosave? Go to the autosave immediately, just travel up there and start killing. I'm fuck this.
Yeah. Because that's why I didn't want to do combat, because if you want to do it without save scumming, you basically have to constantly, anytime you build anywhere, you got to wall it off and have turrets. And especially early game, that means you need to then have a way to manufacture the ammo and ship the ammo to the turrets. It's fun, especially when you start getting into artillery and laser turrets, because when you get artillery production set up and you've got enough radar set up, the artillery is just firing 24/7 and will basically just keep a giant area around your base cleared. And one thing, I've done flamethrower walls, which is fun, which is basically an entire wall around your whole thing with flamethrower turrets. The thing I haven't done, the one thing that would make me want to do combat again, is you can do a wall around your base, and then there's a train inside that wall. And that train just has artillery on it.
I've seen that.
So the whole time you just have an artillery train running around the base. So it's definitely awesome, the combat, but it was one of those things where I was like, nothing against the combat, but the fact that I can turn that off and focus on the building and get to the new stuff a little bit faster and easier, I was like, this run is about focusing on building and optimizing and not the combat. So that's why I turned it off, basically.
Yeah, the other thing I like about it, it kind of grounds me, where I can go focus on that for a while and not worry about, like, I get very overwhelmed. My problem with that game, and it's less of a problem now because they changed a few things, but you can just blow through research and not even know what you're researching, what it's doing, all that sort of stuff. And a lot of that is things that people who are much better at these games use, like circuits and stuff like that, which I don't even deal with. But some of it's like stuff that I'm just like not sure what it does, but I can research it. I'm gonna queue the research, and I think having the enemies kind of grounds me back into that. I will say I think this is the farthest I've ever gotten. It's probably not, but it's the farthest in a long time.
I think it is, because I want to say last time you said you got to oil production.
Yeah, so I'm at oil. I'm not at extra oil. So the factory I'm working on right now is building engines, and I was like, I don't need a factory just for engines, so I'm gonna pipe in sulfur and red security cards, whatever they're called, electronics, there to come together and make the blue science, and then truck over the blue science to the stuff. The problem was I need to find more oil because my oil processing, I was devoted to plastic, and it was barely doing plastic, so I needed to go find more oil to do sulfur to get that whole shebang started. But I will say I have successfully set up like another mining area. I have 2 routes of multiple trains on the same tracks with signals that deliver coal and deliver all that stuff, and I felt so proud. I was like, holy fuck. Cool. I even tested it out to be like, make sure the trains wouldn't crash. I've got plastic pickup and coal pickup, and they're trucking. It's bringing the coal all the way to my new iron patch and patching that over. Yep. So it's feeling good. It's great. I will mention that thing they made, the thing that how they adjusted some of the researching is like to unlock after oil, you have to go find oil and start harvesting oil, which those weren't there in the previous game. Like there was never like a item requirement to unlock research something. So I like that they added that. Like you have to go do the thing so you at least know what the object you're researching is before you can go off and do more stuff with it. So yeah, I'm having a blast. How are you liking all the changes?
It's crazy. I mean, we've been talking for a while about Factorio, and we have not talked about any of the quote unquote DLC new content Space Age because we're not there yet. There is a delay. And if I didn't love this game so much, I would be frustrated by it because basically it's end game content. They've brought the end condition of the game a little bit earlier, but you still probably have, I would say, 20 hours to play until you get to launching a rocket and then going into the Space Age content. And the second thing on top of that was they specifically said, they're like, hey, we're making a lot of changes. You should plan to start a new save with this. So it is a little frustrating that I'm going to have to put 20 hours into a game just to get to the DLC content. And when I've beaten the game several times before, but at the same time, it kind of makes sense for this, and I love this game, so it's okay. This was also their 2.0 release, which added a lot of quality of life stuff and changes, and some of it's super helpful. Like they have like a Factoriopedia in the game, so you can like easily, I think it's alt right click anything and it'll pull up an entry being like, here's how to make it, here's where you can make it, here's where it's used in, and different stuff like that. It's funny though, because I don't think the 2.0 changes are enough. I understand the changes that they've made. I've watched a couple of YouTube videos, but they're not exactly, how do I put this? It's not like there were 50 changes I wanted to make and they only made 5 of them. It feels like they were really focusing on end game extreme user quality of life changes. And there's a lot of stuff that mods are doing that I turned all the mods off, but I'm tempted to turn some of these mods back on. So things like squeak through, where if you have 2 buildings next to each other in the default game, you can't go through, you have to go all the way around. Squeak through lets you get through those little tiny cracks. There's like a to-do list mod, so you can put like a to-do list or a little notes app in the game to be like, remember to upgrade your iron ore, do sulfur first, and then go to lubricant. You know, that ability's not in the game by default. So there's like a lot of quality of like super simple quality of life stuff that I feel like they did not add. And I still have problems. I don't know if you have this problem, but I don't think the controls and the UI interactions are intuitive in terms of like split stack, full stack, like copy recipe, paste recipe. I've played this game several times now. Granted, it's been a while, but I was like, I know that I can copy recipe, paste recipe from one building to another. And then I would go, I've done it like 10 times now. I would go into the controls and I would scroll through all the controls and I can't find it. And then eventually I just have to open fucking Google and go Factorio copy paste building recipe. And it's like shift right click, shift left click. And I'm like, great, cool. It's cool that that's in there, but it doesn't feel, and it feels like a lot of the controls beyond basic movement and interaction are like that, where they have shortcuts, but they're not intuitive and they do a terrible job of explaining them to you or even just having them in the controls list. And it feels like I'm constantly fumbling with the controls, even how much I've played this game. So it's one of those things where I do think I'm excited to get to the new content. It's still a great game. They have enhanced it, but it still feels like there's some low hanging fruit here they've missed. I don't know. What do you feel like, Will?
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if it was from before, but I remembered the shift right click, left click. But I do agree with you. I was searching through forget what I couldn't remember how to enter a vehicle, and it's the enter button. And I'm like, what the fuck are we doing? Why is it the enter button?
Yeah. Why isn't it E? Yeah.
But there's also there's so much you can do from that. Like late game, like you can play a lot of that game now in the map screen once you have drones and everything. Like you don't have to be with your character anymore. So there's a lot of stuff I'm looking forward to, and I think a lot of these changes, like I saw a bunch of how some of the train design, rail laying works now. Like you can hold shift to, like you can drag your mouse out and it'll only go the length of how far it can build at once, but if you hold shift it'll go to where your mouse is, so you can do like complex curves, which I think is really neat, because the train rail building in that was sucky for a long time. So I do like that, and I think overall, as someone who played it earlier this year where I was like, oh, I'm gonna beat Factorio, it feels a lot more, I don't know, just snappier and more together. So I'm enjoying that. Also, I noticed there are some things that you could squeeze through that you couldn't before. Like
I remember they said that.
They added some stuff. Yeah. But I agree. I might get that notepad one back. And maybe just have more squeeze through. Are you doing main bus? How are you setting up your little starter base?
Yeah, I'm doing main bus. I did a lot of research. Like I joked about it last week, but I really have been doing a lot of research before I started this playthrough. And basically the consensus is main bus is best until you get to a scale at which you want to switch to city block. Do you know city block design?
That's just like huge area, like grid based.
Yeah, it's grid based, and the idea is, think about like city blocks. Each block is a self-defined size. You have a template so that hey, in this block design, I only need like 4 power transformers and 4 robo ports, and it covers the whole thing, and it's empty. But then also on the edges where the streets would be in a street, in a city block, is rail networks and power. So you set up a perfectly tileable thing so you can just drop it down. It gives you an empty space tied into the train network and the power network and the logistics network with your roboport, and then you can build whatever you want in that like 100 by 100 or 250 by 250 block, whatever size you decide to do. But they basically said, hey, once you like launch your first rocket and you start to go to scale, or which I think in Space Age basically means like once you start to really get into the Space Age content, you want to go to city block. So I've never done a city block. I'm going to transition to city block at some point. Okay. What about you? You doing main bus?
Yeah, I started main bus because I always do main bus, and then I was like, so I've done that for a little bit. I did that up until I was making military science, and then at one point on the main buses, I was like, I need assembly machines that just build things for me, because I can't sit around building red transporter belts, all this sort of stuff. So inside the main bus, I built tiny little factories that like crisscrossed all over it. And that, because I was just like fed up with the main bus. I've done it every single time, and I'm like, it's never that fun. I don't need this much content.
Something I'm doing different this time, which is it's a mistake I've made before, which is that not everything goes on the main bus. You've really got to reduce it. So for example, one of the things is I've always put copper wire on the main bus, but reading about it, people were like, don't do copper wire on the main bus. Like, it takes up more space than copper sheets. If you need it for any recipe, then at that factory you make the copper wire, then into the so you want to keep it really basic, and you want to keep it so that way your main bus isn't 20-30 items, and that's really helping me. But and I get the frustration you're talking about where you build little factories. Like I have one making me pipes and one making me conveyor belts and stuff. My frustration isn't with that. It's that I have to tie those into the main bus just until I get to the robo ports, because once I get to that and the logistics up, then I can put those factories anywhere. I can have little pocket factories completely separate from the main bus, and the bots will take care of it and then bring that shit to me. So it's just a frustration because I know I'm about to hit the tech that's going to make it so much easier for me.
Yeah, that's kind of how I was feeling. Like I was like, do I really need to truck in all this coal if I'm about to get the electric furnaces? But then I still do need it for like steel and stuff. So I was like, oh, okay. And so I'm still doing the main bus. Like, and to your point, I also learned not to put every item on there. I main bus to make the grabbers, the yellow grabbers, but it just it connects to the main bus until it goes into whatever card it's needed for. And then it's off the main bus. So like after that is where at the bottom of the yellow grabbers, it creates all yellow grabbers into leftover yellow grabbers into fast inserters. So it's like it's just a little section of the main bus and then moves on to the next thing. But yeah, when I think I was thinking of city block as well, not exactly as you're describing it, templatizing it, which sounds great. I was just going to be like, I'm going to switch over to big factories that are doing their own thing, because that's kind of what I liked about Status Factory, is not having a main bus, going off and building big factories that feed into things. And I think doing the city block works for me, but I'm also scared because I've never gotten to drones. I've never gotten to like everything for me in Factorio is I have to get item from A to B and feed it into things. But when now thinking I can just set up a robot and train network that delivers the goods, it's just like something to wrap my head around, because it's always, no, you mine the coal and you drag that coal all the way over to the thing you needed to bring it to, and not have a train network. So it's gonna take some getting used to, but
Kyle, when are you gonna play Factorio?
What are you guys talking about? I wasn't. No. Okay. So it's genuinely not really my type of game, but I've been trying to play more games that are outside of my normal circle of like comfort. So maybe this will be one. I mean, if you guys are talking about it this much and you clearly are really passionate about it, I mean, maybe I'll jump in at some point.
I mean, let me put it this way. It's a really good game, and it is. It's tough, but it's definitely there's a very strong argument that it's the best factory automation game ever made. So it's like, if you're going to try one of these, you might as well try Factorio.
Start with this one. Yeah.
All downhill from here.
I'll put it on the list. Yeah.
It's good. I've also been playing a ton this week because I'm going away this weekend. And
there's a demo.
I'm very upset. I am going to bring my Steam Deck because it does control okay on the Steam Deck. It kind of feels like when you used to work in an office and you had to work from home. That's how it feels like playing Factorio on the Steam Deck, where you like don't have all the equipment you need. You're just kind of like, I want to be at a desktop.
Does Steam Link work remote?
What do you like Steam Deck?
Like Steam Link. Does Steam Link work outside of your own network?
I don't know.
I don't think so. Tried it. Yeah, I want to say I don't think it does. But yeah.
I mean,
but I was just gonna say, if you're bringing a laptop, it's not that intensive. Just play it on that. You know?
No, I have it on my MacBook, so I could play on there with keyboard and mouse.
And cloud save. Yeah.
Yeah, and cloud save. Yeah. And the other thing with the Steam Deck is I could just plug in a keyboard and mouse to the Steam Deck. But as far as like traveling and keeping it compact, the Steam Deck is the better choice. But Factorio Space Age, it's great. It's fun. I can't wait to get to all the planets. I'm going to try to make it. I want to get to a point where I can be like, oh, this is the game I play when I'm listening to podcasts, when I'm like, I don't necessarily want to do it all in the next month. I want to maybe try to space it out and be like, oh, let me do a couple shifts over at Factorio and like keep it constant and be like at least clock in once a week to stay updated with it. Because it really is good. It's a good video game.
The only thing that's still up in the air that we have to decide at some point is when we're going to spin up our Factorio Space Age server. I'm thinking 6 months. We don't want to burn out, so I'm thinking 6 months from now.
Yeah, that works. And man, that one will have to play with enemies because that will.
Yes, well, I think that's more fun because I was listening to Mary Kish talk about this on local chat, and one day she was just like, "I've been playing this game called Factorio. You guys ever heard of Factorio?" And I was like, because the Fire Escape guys, they don't normally play those types of game. And it was funny. She's like, I don't give a shit about the building, but I'm playing with other people on a server, and all I do is kill stuff. And so she's like, all I do is I come back to base, and they're like, oh, and they tell me what new weapon they've unlocked, and there's a chest full of ammo, and I just grab all that stuff and I go kill stuff, and then I come back 30 minutes later, and they're like, oh, by the way, we have a tank now. Here's your tank. So like, I do think enemy is much more fun with multiplayer because one person can deal with that and really dive into that. Like it's a whole nother delegation that you can give. You know, one person's working on advanced tech, one person's working on basic resources, one person's working on enemies, etc. So I do think enemies are great in the main game, but I feel like it would really sing with multiplayer.
Yeah, and I'm hoping to beat a playthrough first because my issue always with those types of games is when you delegate, you come back and something's done, and you're like, yeah, I don't understand how to do it now, so I'll never be able to like want to do it again. So now, like, I want to get to advanced oil extraction so I can be like, or like processing, so I can kind of understand how it works a lot better.
Yep.
Yeah, excited. I think something's up with my oil processing, but maybe I need to wait for advanced because it seems like it's making way less.
Just check your ratios.
Did you look at the right ratio? That's probably what it is. I probably think it's a lot more oil than it is. Only like a 700% yield.
Yeah, that could be it.
Yeah. Oh well. Well, I'll think I'll do that later. Anyways, news time. You got news?
Yeah, let's play the news theme. Oh, Will, we are only like 5 episodes away from the new news theme. We should probably figure that out.
Yeah, I'm really excited for it. It's gonna blow. It's literally gonna blow your balls off.
Oh, literally. Okay.
Literally. Anyways, let's hit the games news real quick. We've got 2 announcements. First of up, Caves of Qud. Did I pronounce it properly, Will?
I hope so.
Qud. Caves of Qud, QUD 1.0 is releasing December 5th, 2024. Will, I'm pretty sure you know more about this game than I do.
Yes, it is Dwarf Fortress Adventure Mode. It's a roguelike. Actually, it's a rogue. Yeah, it's a rogue. It's a roguelike. It is a sci-fi roguelike, and you are an adventurer. You wake up in a town, and everything that happens is crazy. You can interact with people. You can saw off arms, add bionics, do all this crazy stuff. And 1.0 is releasing on December 5th. I have played a little bit of it, and by a little bit of it, I feel like probably an hour to 30 minutes. It is very daunting, but also very cool. It is one of those games that you probably need to give it a lot of upfront time, and then you can like fun, relax, play it. But until you do that accomplished upfront time, I think it's gonna take a little bit. But it is a neat game, and I'm happy for them coming to 1.0.
Awesome. Kyle, have you heard that Squadron 42 has a new release date of 2026?
Yeah. I mean, I've been vaguely paying attention to all the CitizenCon stuff that they put out. I mean, I'll believe it when I actually have it in my library and it's playable. But yeah, I mean, they did like a small vertical slice, I guess, demo that crashed, and then they had to like re-upload the actual gameplay. And granted, it's very much like in the polish phase, but it's also been in the polish phase for like a year already. So this is, and the thing is they've shown this section in like all the trailers and stuff. It's like this is what they focus on. So it's already very familiar.
This is the only thing they've made.
This is the only thing they've made. So I get updates. I get emails, I think bi-weekly or monthly, and it's just updates on Squadron 42. And every time I get one of those updates, I am waiting for like the hey, like we reached X milestone, and it is never that. It is always like the most incremental, like here's what the AI team worked on this week. They worked on randomizing pathing for people in hallways around I forget what the Idris, their big like main like gunship. It's like so like randomized pathing and creating like blah 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 blah, and it's always like little tiny things like that, but it fills like 3 pages, and it's all different types of systems. So it's like they've got like the server meshing team for the actual the player universe, not the non Squadron 42 thing that people can actually go and play. They've got like 1 million people working on that. They've got 1 million people working on. They're still like writing. They're still like rewriting stuff. They're like the writing team worked on random NPC dialogue to fill voids and like XYZ, and I'm just like, this has to be like a tax fraud thing. Like there's no way. Like, and I'm someone who like is interested in it, and I'm like, there's no way that they're doing this much like bullshit work for 10 years.
It feels almost like a Ponzi scheme, but instead of like the money going to pay investors or anything, they're just like, hey, people keep giving us money to make games. What if we just never finish the game and just keep paying our salaries? Basically,
I mean, that's basically you could absolutely make that argument, for sure. And granted, like they are releasing stuff. Like it's not like they're not putting stuff out, but all the stuff that they do release breaks almost everything that came before it. So when I was playing the PTU, the player universe, every update was like maybe like 2 or 3 months there'd be like a new update, and it would break some major part of the game for weeks, and they were like, oh, it was ready, it was working fine for us, and like something went wrong, so like okay, and you would just not play, and they can't like roll it back, or they don't if they have a way to do that. But I'm at the point now with Squadron 42 and Star Citizen where I have not felt that itch to play it in quite a long time, like more than 8 months even. And I consider playing it like checking in. Like I'll give it like an hour of like, I'll download everything, I'll restart my character. What's new? Like last time I logged in, they changed the HUD, and there was like a mini map that came up that made navigating actually way easier, but it still feels so janky and just so like, I know that they're using the Avalanche. It's like a spawn off of Crytek's engine, or CryEngine, but it's licensed through Amazon because originally they were using CryEngine, and then they got sued by Crytek, so now they can't use it. And it's if you watch any of the animation that's done in the vertical slice that they put out, the game is so old that the facial animation tech looks like it's from like the early 2010s, because it is. They did it in like 2012 or like 2013. They recorded all of those lines with like Gary Oldman, with what's her name?
Gillian Anderson.
Gillian Anderson and Mark Strong and Henry Cavill and Mark Hamill and all those people. And it's like, you can tell like the facial tech that they had at the time was really good, but like we're dealing with like Avatar 2 now, like that kind of, like that level of professional motion capture, and it's just like it doesn't look like nearly as good. I don't know, man. I just don't. I show me something real, and I'll believe you. But
yeah.
I'm reading that Jason Schreier's Blizzard book, and I cannot wait. I hope he does the book on. I mean, I don't think he will, but if I
want to do a book
pick
on
anything to have him do another book on, it would be the Star Citizen stuff. It's only, I mean, if there is something juicy there, but also just like the rampant mismanagement that probably is going on in there.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I was trying to think of a book that I wanted to download for my drive down to Florida, and I think it might be that one. And it's because I watched him on the Adam Ruins Everything, Adam Conover's podcast. I forget what it's called, but Jason Schreier was there, and he basically was just there to promote his book. I don't like Jason Schreier as like a person. I think he's very annoying, and undeniably talented as a reporter though, and a writer.
But he can be very aggressive about his scoops, where he's like to other journalists like, no, you have it wrong, and it's like, no, they didn't have it wrong, they just had a different part of the story you didn't.
You have
and
Adam
Conover was bringing up like several good points in his podcast that I was like, yeah, that's like a very valid point. And Jason was just like, well, no, it's not actually like that. And like his voice is just so annoying to me. I don't know why. It's one of those people that just something about them just I don't like. Like I don't have that many people in my life that I can't. Him and Jake, basically the only two. Jason, maybe it's just people with J names.
Well, Zach from Save Data too.
No, Zach was cool. We hugged it out.
Oh, true. He touched you and forgot about Ian.
Yeah. Yeah,
right.
That's basically it. But yeah, so I think I might download that book, the audiobook, and give it a listen on my way down.
I also recommend his first book. I haven't read his second book, even though I heard it's
give
good.
him that much money. I'll pirate.
Oh, I mean, don't give him any money. Go to Zlib. Like, what are you doing?
Oh, okay.
But do the right Zlib though. Some of them are honeypots now. Some of them are honeypots.
Wait, sticky.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Next story,
please.
Next story.
For the love of God. It's 10:10.
Oh, what good news. We've got some movements at Bungie. This was already announced as some of their recent layoffs, but the Bungie Creative Studios team has moved completely to PlayStation to support live service games. They are going to continue working on Destiny Marathon, but they are no longer part of Bungie. So this is their Creative Studios team. They've helped out with some live service games, done some marketing, some consulting, things like that. They were underneath Bungie, working on Bungie games, and then when they were acquired by PlayStation, they were still under Bungie, but helping consult on PlayStation games. Now they are completely moving under the PlayStation banner, and they'll still be working on Bungie games. But folks, this is I don't want to say this is the start, but this is another chunk of Bungie dying, right?
It's a step towards your prediction for
what's
really
happening. Is. Yeah, this is. Hey, what are the good parts of Bungie? Let's bring them in house so it's easier to kill off Bungie completely in a year or two when Marathon flops. So I am reading a bit much into that, but at the same time, this does feel like the whole thing was when Bungie got acquired by PlayStation. There was a lot of talk of like, hey, they're still going to remain separate. They're still going to work on Destiny. We just kind of want them to be part of PlayStation and help with PlayStation games. And this kind of feels like the opposite. This is them this feels like PlayStation trying to leech talent from Bungie to bring them in-house so that eventually the Bungie brand is either streamlined or dead. I don't know. Am I reading too much into this? What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's preemptive on their part. Especially if whatever they're planning to do with Destiny doesn't work out, and if Marathon is not a hit, I think that will most likely some form of what you just described will happen. I mean, Bungie's been on a downward trend for years as far as interest in what they're actually doing. I don't think Marathon is going to be huge. I don't think it's going to be Destiny. And I don't know what their goals are for that game, but I would hope that they are set very low, because I really don't think that it's going to garner much interest in the general public. But with Destiny, you've got that mobile game coming out that they're not even developing. They're just they're just like to help produce it. Obviously that could be a big hit in like China, which is I'm sure is where they're hoping it will be a hit. I don't know how many hardline Destiny fans there are in the mainland, but
that's a good question though. I don't think Destiny appeals to Chinese taste, because when I think about what is big over there, you have Blizzard, but it's the fantasy element, it's the sci-fi element of StarCraft, right? And it's the RTS competitive nature of it. And then you also have PUBG Mobile especially, which has a competitive element, but also has kind of like a tactical element to it. Destiny, not that competitive. It's not fantasy. It's sci-fi, but it's not tactical. It's not competitive. So it's like, I don't see that hitting.
I guess it just depends. It depends on what the mobile game actually is. 'Cause like you're pretty limited with what you can do on.
They've shown it. I'm pretty sure it's just third person Destiny.
Is it? Okay. I wasn't aware that they showed stuff.
No, I think it has third person elements in it.
Because Destiny has third person elements in it. We
didn't talk about it. I think it was the week that I wasn't on. Because there's a 2-minute trailer out from NetEase.
Yeah, I remember putting it on.
It's third person.
Did that get bumped because we went for like 90 minutes?
It might have been.
I can't remember.
It might have been the week with.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
So it's one of those things where like they're partnering with NetEase on that. They're really trying to make that a thing, but I don't see it landing in any of the markets that the mobile games usually land in. So unless they spend $500 million like Monopoly Go did on advertising, well, shit, even if they did that, I don't see that hitting.
There is some first person, but I think there's
both.
like full on first person.
Yeah, I mean Destiny is both first person and third person.
Yeah, I don't know. No, but it only pops to third person when you're doing abilities, right?
Not necessarily. There's like certain weapons that are third person, stuff like that.
Like
really?
Swords?
Like swords, I think was always in third person. Abilities, and then like there's some other stuff that was third person. But
it seems like. They're showing you can shoot in third person, and then it sort of seamlessly bumps into first person.
It might be a little bit different, but I'm not saying you're wrong. I was just saying.
Yeah, it's basically just it's mobile Destiny, but apparently it's alternative timeline, etc.
Which is the stupidest thing to me ever. Like, what do you like?
I know. Yeah, like sorry, I'm gonna cut in here, but Kyle, you were talking about like what do they have in the pipe? It's Destiny Rising. That's fucking dead. It's not even them, so it's not like they're gonna make 100% of the money off that.
Yeah.
They've got their Destiny DLCs, which have been dead in the water for years now, are gonna be even worse after the final shape was ho-hum at best. And then they've got Marathon, which is an extraction shooter, which is a very niche market that is already completely captured by Escape from Tarkov. And the main Destiny players are not going to be into that. So like, what the fuck are they doing? They're cooking fucking nothing over there. They're toast. What are they doing? Make a fucking Halo game. Come on, people. Like, make something. You know,
should make a car auction game where you play Pete Parsons just buying old cars.
Like, that's a joke, but that is more exciting than the shit.
Yeah, I'd at least check it out. I don't know, man. I don't know what I seriously think that your prediction from what was it, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, you said like 5 to 7 years, Bungie it might not be a thing anymore. So, and
that was a wild ass pessimistic prediction, and I can't believe that it is becoming true, honestly. Because
let me pop that.
There were a lot of continuous poor decisions that had to be made at all levels of that company in order for that prediction to come true. And I told them all they had to do was watch local chat.
I was waiting
all
for
they
it
had
to
to do.
up.
It's really funny. Again, reading the Blizzard book, like Bobby Kotick talking like behind the scenes was just like, why aren't we making a World of Warcraft expansion every year? Why are we incubating this Overwatch thing? Why aren't just hire more people? If you hire more people, you can get the expansions out even faster. And it's that mentality in probably all of these giant game companies that's like, hey, live service, it makes money. It's constant money. It's money every month. It's money every day. Like, why would we make a single player game that doesn't have content? Where's the content? And it's like, it's such a dichotomy in the book because this incubation team went and made Overwatch that became this huge, massive thing. And now in the book, they're at the tail end of Overwatch and they're just like, let's make something new. And everyone's like, no, there's the Overwatch League. We're trying to sell this to cities. And we're trying, like, you got to make new cosmetics for every city that we're selling this to. And it's just like crazy, like how much of that is probably going on behind the scenes at all of these companies. And people just want to make video games.
That and then the Overwatch League stuff that they were doing. Jason talked about this on the podcast, just like the insane amount, the workload that was pulled away from actual game development that was funneled into the league stuff was like astronomically like it broke the pipelines that they had built up. And then he talked about, have you gotten to the Hearthstone part? He talks about
they went through Hearthstone.
Where he was the way he talked about it was really funny. He was like, yeah, it was basically this like indie band like team of people that were looked down upon, that were like, you should be working on Overwatch, or you should be working on World of Warcraft. And they were like, no, we think this is pretty cool. And then Hearthstone became this huge thing. And it just, I don't know, the difference in mentality that he highlighted was really pretty striking. And then also, I think he said, I might be getting this wrong, but he said when Activision came and got hold of Blizzard, and Bobby Kotick was like installing his friends and like his like people that he trusted into different positions of power, they installed someone as the CEO or CFO of Blizzard who worked at Procter and Gamble or something.
Yeah.
And he was like loathed because he didn't understand anything about video games, and just was like, oh, well, if we open a business in Brazil, then like that means we'll get like that will make things easier in that country. And it was like, do you want to understand anything? Like the mentality is just crazy. But
even like the loot boxes, I don't want to go too far into this. Even loot boxes for Overwatch, they were like, oh, isn't like opening a card pack super fun? What if we just like made these loot boxes where you could get random pieces of gear and stuff like that? And they just were like, it just would be fun for people to do that. And then the game came out and they were like, hey, we made $1 billion on microtransactions. Like, and that's where like business rushed in and was like, oh, we gotta make more money. And it's just like sad and it sucks, but you know, it's just that book's really good.
I don't mean to defend Bobby Kotick here, but I do got to play a little bit of devil's advocate, because this is kind of what you're talking about with Jason Schreier being like definitive. No, this is the truth. And you know, I've heard some of these interviews with him, and it feels like he's advocating a lot for like, no, let the team cook as long as they want, they will make a good game. And do you guys remember Mass Effect Andromeda from BioWare? You guys remember Suicide Squad from Rocksteady? Like, even if you have a fantastic team and you let them cook, there's no fucking guarantee. So it's one of those things where I'm like, it's not extremes. I don't think either option is correct, but you've got to balance that recurring revenue to at least pay the bills. It's one of the reasons why Rocket League is such a great success story. I don't know if you guys watched the No Clip documentary on it, but basically the studio, I never heard of them. The studio, basically like 99% of their bills while they were making Rocket League was doing outsourced Unreal Engine work for other developers. But that kept the lights on so they could do their side project off to the side and make Rocket League. And Rocket League was a sequel to their first game, which wasn't super successful. And so they still had to do side contracts. So it's one of those things where it's like, you still have to do the shitty recurring work to bring the revenue in, to keep the lights on, to fund those R&D, those next gen games and teams. You can't put all your eggs in that basket, and you can't let them run wild, because before you know it, you've got 8 or 9 years of development and hundreds of millions of dollars down the drain because they made Concord. You know, it's like,
oh yeah,
that's
I
the nature of
completely
this.
agree.
That's the nature of this industry, is you got to find that balance.
I think Schreier is actually arguing your point. It's just we've been like cherry picking the stories that are like interesting from.
It's more like Kotick being like, not like, he was very adamant about canceling Hearthstone and Overwatch, and those are the two that turned out, and to be fair, that is after the 80 million sinkhole of Titan was finally canceled. So you are 100% correct, but it's just
it's like cherry picking the bad examples of Kotick, where I'm like, no, Kotick, as much as I don't like him, he did bring Activision into a collapse.
Crazy smart man, in CEO. But it was also things like, hey, what, like, it's the same with the add another lane to the highway. Just hire more developers to make these World of Warcraft things every year. Like, what do you, like, why are we not making a new expansion every month? Like, what's wrong with you? And it's just like that mentality.
It's not a bad idea, though. I mean, I don't want to get into it, but I would be like, hey, what's the size of a team you need to put out an expansion, a WoW expansion every year, and be okay with the quality of it? And they're like, it's like 30 people. I'm like, great, you've got your 30 people. Everything outside of that, you guys can go work on your dream project, but I need at least 30 people from you every year to do an expansion. So it's not all towards the expansion, but it's like, you need to hit these minimum targets. Once you do that and you satisfy it, anything above and beyond that, go work on your dream projects. You know,
the problem was it didn't work, but that was kind of the issue. But it's
that idea is that you just spoke to, Ian, is kind of what I think a lot of people were hoping Microsoft would be when they started buying up all these studios, was like kind of sort of hands off and a little bit like, you know, give us a baseline of income and then you can be your own studio. And you know, that has not worked out as much as I think people hoped. So
yeah, but anyways, just to bring it back to Bungie, it's interesting, this whole conversation, because when I try and tie it back in, I think of Bungie started as that, right? They started as a bunch of really good people. They had really good pedigree, and they were like, we're going to make what we want. And they did a pretty good job. You know, they made Destiny. Destiny was successful. They went on to make Destiny 2. Destiny 2 was successful, but that team just kept cooking, and they continuing to make mistakes, and it feels like nobody's willing to step in and tell them to stop making mistakes. In a way, you know, it feels like they're kind of a runaway train, and not everything can be a hit, and now they're having to pay for that. They really just need, I don't think this is PlayStation, I don't know who it is, but they need somebody to come in and be like, we're going to completely reorg, we're going to rework, we're going to figure out what bare minimum we need to do to get you the revenue so that you can start working on the project that you actually want to work on that's going to be successful. And guess what, folks? It's not fucking Destiny Rising. It's not Destiny 3. It's not Marathon. You need to find something that's actually going to work and play test it, and it's going to work. It feels like they are lacking some discipline there. And that's what some of the rumors have said, was that when PlayStation bought them, they immediately regretted it, because they were like, these guys have no fucking discipline. You know, like, they're spending money out the ass. They're not hitting any of their fucking targets, and they keep making the same mistakes. So it's funny. Tying it back into Activision Blizzard, they've been treated with kid gloves as a dream team for too long, and now they actually need that Procter and Gamble discipline in a way, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, let's hit these last two news stories. First up, you guys ever heard of Netflix's AAA Team Blue gaming studio?
Hell yeah!
I knew that I had heard, like, they announced, I don't know how long ago this was, maybe like a couple years or 2 years, but they announced some pretty big, like, people from games had been, like, acquired. And
late 2022.
We, like, never heard anything. So yeah.
So 2 years, late 2022, started with Overwatch executive producer Chaco Sonny from Blizzard. In spring 2023, they also got Joseph Staten, longtime creative lead on Microsoft's Halo franchise. This is courtesy of GameFile.news. However, as of October 24, Netflix has shut down Team Blue, and all three of those big hires are no longer at the company. The other third big hire was art director Rafael Grassetti, who had nearly a decade of experience at Sony Santa Monica. So they hired three big people, let the studio cook for 2 years, and then completely shut them down. I think this literally just speaks to what we just talked about, which is that video game industry, very hard. There are no certainties, and money and big backing and big talent in a lot of ways is just not enough. It's tough.
I think a lot of like I would say Netflix, I mean, they're a little bit in the video game world now, but I feel like a lot of companies feel like, oh, we'll buy a studio, we'll have a new game in 6 months, in a year, and we'll be able to start making money on it. And I feel like a dev cycle is way too long for a company like that to be comfortable with it anymore. So this really isn't surprising. How after 2 years they're probably like, you're still not done with your video game? Like, what is going on here? And I can see that.
It's also when this is a quote here, when Joseph Staten left, he said he was exciting to work the Xbox camp. Staten was exiting the Xbox camp for Netflix to work, quote, as creative director for a brand new AAA multi-platform game and original IP, end quote. That's a big fucking bet on a new studio. You know? When I saw, exactly like you're saying, like, game design is hard, it's expensive, it's going to take multiple years to get it right, and then you've got to double that for delays and everything. And my immediate reaction was like, why don't they just make Dave the Diver? You know, like, literally just put out an indie every fucking year. It's small form, it tells you what works, it gets the team working together, proves they're working, and then go to a AAA. Why are you backing like AAA investment, brand new studio off the start like this? You know, they think it's like a business. We have the creatives, we have the money, we're guaranteed to get a return here. It's not like that in the video game industry. Like, the team is most important. You've got to build the team, then you got to find the right IP and idea, and then you've got to actually make it work. And throwing hundreds of millions of dollars off the bat to do a AAA game, brand new studio, bad idea.
Yeah.
Yep.
Speaking of an indie game, indie-ish, any of you guys play Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown from earlier this year?
No, I wanted to. It's on my list because I've
Same.
just heard so many amazing things about it, but I haven't touched it.
Yeah, it's a side-scrolling platformer, a little bit of a rogue or Metroidvania feel to it. It's supposed to be fantastic. I'm excited to play it. Very high reviews, according to rumors confirmed by reporters. The developers of Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, that team has been disbanded by Ubisoft, and they've been moved on to other projects. They basically said, hey, The Lost Crown has failed to meet internal expectations, so we're not going to greenlight your sequel. It doesn't feel like anybody's lost their job here, but they've joined development of Beyond Good and Evil 2. They've also moved over to Project Over, which is the next mainline Ghost Recon game, and also a Rayman remake. So they're kind of being distributed to other teams to work on other projects. But it feels like this feels like a success story. Like literally what I was just talking about. Like you have a team, you have the budget to back them, and you say, hey, make something small and quick and prove yourself. And holy fuck, did they prove it with Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. And because of whatever metrics they're using, they're like, nope, not good enough. Now we're going to go ship you off to a bunch of generic reboots and remakes.
Well, it's almost the same thing as Tango Gameworks and Hi-Fi Rush, where it's like, make something really cool, does incredibly well critically, sells fairly okay. Like I don't know how well Prince of Persia sold, but I know Hi-Fi Rush sold like all right for the size of a game that it was, and then disbanded or sold or whatever.
Yeah. I hate to keep going back to this idea, but I think it really is like, if you have enough money to start a AAA studio, don't use that same amount of money to start an indie studio. Make sure they're delivering. Let them release multiple titles to build up their reputation, so that sales don't really matter. It's about reputation. Then give them the money for a AAA, and holy fuck, there's the AAA game. Because I think about something like Elden Ring, right? Elden Ring's a fantastic game, but the sales of Elden Ring are not because Elden Ring was good. It's because people loved Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3, Bloodborne, Sekiro. Yes, exactly. They built themselves up. Like Demon Souls did not sell well. Even Dark Souls 1 probably didn't sell that well. But because they were able to build up game by game and game, they can release a game like Elden Ring, which outsells expectations, not just because the game's great, but because people are pre-ordering. Everybody knows it's going to be good. It's coming from them, like the Steam World games, etc. I feel like that's got to be the formula for success, not here's a couple $100 million. Let's spin up a AAA studio and just see if it comes out good.
But they only see dollar signs, so none of that would make sense to them at all.
Well, and they need to be like instantaneous dollar signs. Like there's no if you fail, you're
quarterly
done.
revenue. Yes.
And rich people want to make rich bets. They don't want to pay $100,000 to make 10 million. They want to pay $100 million to make
to
10
lose
billion.
50 million.
And I think you were kind of alluding to this, just talking about FromSoft, but like actually having a company with employees that have lasted at that company for longer than like 5 years is becoming more and more rare. Yes. And you have this brain drain that's happening where like people aren't getting the experience of being able to rely on the team as a whole on multiple different projects. They're being shifted around a lot, or they're leaving the industry entirely. And like that's one of the reasons that I think Nintendo is so successful, is because they have decades worth of people who have experience working on those teams internally, who know the strengths and weaknesses of the people around them, and can reliably estimate like, hey, it's going to take us this long to do X, Y, and Z. When you have a new team like that, or you have a bunch of people that have suddenly lost their jobs and the rest of that team has to shore up all those responsibilities, you're not going to get that same level of performance from like as a whole. So it's really unfortunate.
Yeah. Well, that's it for this week's news. We do have some content call out, folks. Ooh. Man, Saturday morning, eating breakfast, perfect YouTube time. I happened to get recommended a video called "I Went to the Largest LARP in North America, Bickling." This is from a YouTuber by the name of Just Lanchen, Lanchen. Am I saying it wrong? I don't know how to say that name. It's just a weird name.
I thought you were saying Never mind. I don't want to say what I thought you said.
But anyways, so this woman went to a live action role play event that has like 4,000 plus people at it. It lasts a week long. They have very strict rules about, they call it decorum, but like you're not allowed to have tech outside of your tent. It's got to all be like matching. And there's people giving quests. There's these giant foam sword battles and people running around. Like one of the stories she talks about is one of the nights, all these people showed up wearing like gnome hats and gnome ears. And the only thing they would say was gnome. And they went around and they would be like, gnome? And if you said yes, then they would give you a gnome hat and you became a gnome for the night. And they called it Gnome Night. But then because it's a LARP, there are also people called gnome hunters who hate the gnomes. And they get for each gnome they kill or do certain things to, they get. So it ends up just being this like crazy big week-long medieval live-action role-play fantasy thing that's going on. And the more I watched this video, the more I was like, we have to go. And okay, I know I said that the title has North America. For some reason, I don't know if it had that title when I watched it or not. The whole time I thought this was in France, because I know there's a big one in France. And I was like
Quebec or something?
Well, I thought it was in France because there's people speaking French, and she's like, you don't have to speak French, but a lot of people speak French. And I was like, this is so cool. How am I going to convince other people to go to this when we have to go to France and we have to try and cheap flights? And then when I looked it up today, I was like, oh, the title must have changed. It's in North America. It's in Quebec. It's just north of Montreal.
Okay.
It costs like $300 for the week to go there. Like that's the entry fee.
It's 350 acres. That's huge. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
She said she was walking like 10 to 15 miles a day. I mean, she was doing a lot of events, but they would give her a quest and she would have to walk to a different town.
Oh my God.
She would have to walk to a different medieval town, and then she would go to the battles and there would be like 4,000 people fighting. So it's like, we may have to do this. We couldn't do this for Pixel 8 because unless we got like a media pass or something, but actually it's interesting. From what I could tell, she must have a media pass for having the cameras, and a lot of the cameras were like GoPro strapped to her chest. Like she was not walking around with cameras because they were like, we want to do decorum. So she must have gotten a media pass, but they still had restrictions. So it's not like we would do a Pixel 8 for this, but this is just fucking cool. And guys, we should go do this.
I'm down.
Really wish we could convince them to do a Pixel 8 as just like an American family visiting. Like, oh wow, I just can't believe Europe's like this.
Oh, look at this.
Either that or the classic dress up as Star Trek characters and like hide.
That is.
That's a great idea.
I realize that's doubly offensive because number one, they're trying to do medieval roleplay, and number two, they're Canadians. They don't need an American tourist family, you know? They're French Canadians.
No,
they definitely don't need American
we
tourists.
We think we're in France like you thought because they're speaking French.
Yeah. But yeah, this just sounds really cool. I'm very tempted to do this because even if you factor in like $300 for the week, and let's put another 500 on top of that for like food, camping supplies, things like that. Even if you put another 500 on top of that for travel, like flight, rental car, whatever, that's still $1,300 for 7 days of like incredible medieval live action role play with people doing like, there's a tavern, there's people who are giving quests, there's battles, there's everybody's in it, everybody's having fun. Fuck me, we may have to do this.
So if we do this, I am not going to be allowed to bring my insulin pump because it's technology. So I have to get an old timey syringe.
We'll get one of those blowers.
Yeah. So she kind of goes into that. She's like, you know, you can have medical stuff, you can have it in your tent. They have convenience stores. They're like medieval themed convenience stores, but they have like, oh, you need a toothbrush and stuff.
I really want a medieval Wawa.
Yeah. Yeah. So they do a really good job of being like we understand, like you're gonna bring soap, right? But at the same time, like there are rules to the costume, there are rules to how you act, and you can't be seen with technology walking around. So it's like, it feels like the perfect balance between, we have rules to set an atmosphere to make sure everybody's following along and playing along with this, but we're not gonna be assholes and like literally no technology, you're not allowed to bring it in at the door type of thing.
Look at hold on, I'm gonna send this in the stream channel. Look at the team photos that they have for everyone. That's so cool. Like the founders, the coordination team, they're all in costume. Isn't that awesome?
When we do go,
Yeah.
What were you gonna say?
I was just going to say, I think the best way to describe this is if you've ever been to a good Renaissance festival, I know on the East Coast they have them where typically they'll have Renaissance festival in a dedicated location where they have like a couple dozen medieval buildings set up in like a small medieval little village type thing. Imagine that, but quadruple the size. They have multiples of those villages, woods in between them, and then there's 4,000 people in costume all role playing together. That's what this feels like to me.
Do you think we could get them to simulate the bubonic plague?
I hope so.
Probably.
Okay.
Probably.
If we do
There's, like,
go, I'm
vampire
refusing
cults
to
and everything.
shower.
Nice.
Oh no! Fuck you.
Swim in the lake. Just swim in the lake. It'll be fine.
I do like. I get this when when I watch movies, I think about this a lot. But specifically in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, there's a scene where they do this, where they're like exhausted from running and they just like jump into a pool of water and like wash off. And I was like, you can't do that you can't like. I can't fall into a body of water and not immediately panic about my phone, wallet, keys. Like,
yeah,
this world has gone so woke that we can't even fall into a pool of water.
I mean, if iPhones were just waterproof instead of water resistant, you could.
True.
Do that.
So I just to give you a small story from the video, talking about jumping into bodies of water. So they do battles throughout the week, but there's one day where they're like try and do a big battle and they have like 3,000-4,000 people doing the battle at once. And she just has this story about how at the end of the battle, there's this one religion that basically does like free baptisms, and they're like, hey, whoever wants to like jump in the river with us and pray to our fake god, and we do little baptisms where we feed you wine in the river and we all sing together. And they're like, and she's like, one of my friends did it, looked like it was fun, so it's just like weird little things like that where it's just like, people just being like, hey, we're a cult of vampires, you want to join? And then other people being like, hey, I'll give you 20 LARP currency to go kill a vampire or infiltrate their base. They're somewhere in the woods and they have to go in the middle of the woods and try and find this place, but they're trying to bribe people to figure out where they are. This could be really cool.
Yeah,
I'm
down.
super down to go. Sounds like a fun time.
I think it's August of next year.
Let's do it.
They do events throughout the year, but there's like 1 week that is like the big one. So we should really, because you're probably a 6-hour drive from it, Will. So
sweet. That's 6 hours of show tunes. I don't know. This is great. I'm going to watch this video tomorrow while I have breakfast, which is black coffee.
Oh, you know what? I do want to say one thing. I did not look into this, but in the video she mentions it. Apparently there is an online simplistic video game that is about these medieval kingdoms vying for territory and things. And the game is built around this fictional kingdom of Bickeline. So whatever happens in the video game, people will then show up in the LARP and they'll be like, oh, I represent this faction, and certain things are happening because that's what's happened in the online game. So there's like a very simplistic 2D MMO that also goes along with this, which is cool as well. Like you're playing this video game 51 weeks out of the year, and then you show up in a place and there's 3,000 other people role playing this video game country that you've been playing.
Yeah, there's you can on the bickeline.org is apparently the game, but I can't tell if you have to register in person for the game. Like this person registered at the inn at the festival.
Fuck, that's cool.
Which is crazy. I'll have to
cool.
Look
They do like a Christmas market too. That's cool.
Oh, that's probably really good.
Yeah.
Great. Medieval time next summer.
Sorry,
oh god,
I'm just clicking through their FAQ, and the last one was in which year, and the question is, in which year does Bickeline take place? And it goes, Bickeline has its own calendar. This year we are in 1023. In 2024 we'll be in 1024. So yeah,
it's crazy that it lines up.
Really cool. Yeah,
it's wild.
I'd be so excited for this.
Yeah, I'm down. I think we should all do it and make Jake do it at gunpoint.
Yeah.
I mean, since we all, what was the thing? There's just something about him that we all don't like.
There's just something weird about Jake. Just don't like him.
Just
him
get
and
that
Jason
vibe.
Schreier are not invited.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna hit the outro button and we're gonna get outro here. Folks, thank you so much for being cute, being hot, being fun. We'll be back on Tuesday? No, sorry, Sunday. Well, first of all, shut up. This weekend, Kyle at some point is going to do a Spooky Pixel thing whenever he wants to, so fuck off. Sunday, if I'm home in time...
to give you details for that?
No.
Okay.
We just vaguely talked about it. If you want to do something, go for it. Sunday, I'm going to try to make it home in time, so at 8 p.m. I can do more Silent Hill. Kyle is... Hopefully you can make it there for 8 p.m. Silent Hill. If I'm not home in time, maybe I'll do it Monday, but that's no promise. So that's what's coming up. Next week should be back to normal. And then remember, November 9th is Extra Life, 24 hours starting at noon. It'll be super fun. Donate for the kids. It'll be a great time. So we'll see you then, and goodbye.
Bye.